Hello and welcome to Life in the Mind, a neurodivergent podcast by neurodivergent people. I'm Murray Spear.
And I'm Joy Amy Wigman.
And we are delighted to have back with us Zabe Nawaz. Hello, Zabe.
Hey. Said my name right.
I did. I concentrated a lot.
I did
to make
notice
sure,
that.
because we talked about it so much
I know,
today.
about how to pronounce names and make sure we get people's names right. Yeah,
Yeah, it's now like the forefront of my thought. I can't think of anything else apart from names.
Abe or Zed, Zeds and Zabe. It just depends.
Yeah, that's a good
If
idea.
you Abe and then just put Zed on the front. It might confuse you. It helps some
Yeah,
people.
no, that actually, no,
Yeah,
I'm not
that's-
thinking
that's
just
more
with
of
the
a-
letter A. My brain is so in that place today.
No, don't worry, because it's helpful for some people, not for others. So it is
Yeah.
yin and yang, right? So it just depends on each person.
Zabe's been desperately trying to get my name
I
in
know.
her head.
I'm not going
Yeah,
to say
it's
the name.
repeating
It's
it.
a really hard one.
I was renaming you.
It's okay. I get so much Amy Jo.
No, don't say that.
I don't know why. What
That's
it
gonna
is.
be my head now.
Maybe it just flows more. I don't know.
Amy Jo.
Amy Jo. Hey, Amy Jo.
I've got to put my fingers in my ears so I
No,
don't get it. Because I just
No, it's
got
fine.
your name right. Because if I say your name, then I want to make sure. Joy Amy, Joy Amy, Joy Amy, Joy Amy. I've got to get in my head.
I worked,
Joy Amy, Joy Amy, Joy Amy,
worked
Joy
with a
Amy.
guy for a year and a half before he actually came up to me and went, "I'm sorry. What is your name? How do you say it?"
That's me in most social interactions, to be honest. Even if, like, I know the person really well, I know, like, everything about them. Name, nope, it's gone.
It took him a year and a half.
Yeah.
There are only 5 people in my team.
Actually, I'm part of a choir, and, like, it's a really lovely community folk choir thing. So everybody, like, knows each other and chats loads, and it's really informal. There are people who have been there since the start. I don't know what their names are. I do the register. Kind of, I do the greeting bit each week. I'm
love
sitting
that.
next to their names, ticking them off.
This is all being recorded,
And
right?
so, oh yeah, no, it's a perfect example of the neurodivergent reality.
I had this woman, I saw her at the tack shop, and she was like, hi, Zeb. And I was just, hi. And she was just like, how are you? And I'm like, okay. Because I can't hide anything on my face. She was just like, you don't know who I am. And then the woman behind the counter was proper stirring. She was like, she can't remember you. And I'm just like, stop it. I was like, no, I know you. I do know you. She goes, well, I did bring your horse in, like, throughout lockdown for, like, 2 years. I'm like, wait. I know. She goes, no, I don't. I really don't. And she was like, Nikki? And so I saw her the other day. I was like, hi, Nikki.
I can't do people out of context. It takes me
Yeah.
ages. Even if I know them really well, if they turn up in a place that I'm not used to seeing them, I will suddenly go, who are you? Where do I place you? Oh, you're my cousin. Hi.
That's why I had my cousin say to me once, he called up. To be fair, I haven't spoken to him in ages. Called me up. He was like, hi, this is Yasser. And I'm like, hi. He was just, yes, sir. He's like, your cousin? And I'm like, well, I haven't spoken to him in years.
I'm a blood relative.
Like,
We have known each other since very young.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah, but relatives stay away. Immediate family come near.
Yeah.
Well, moving on from placing people in the wrong places, we'd like to talk a little bit about HHPDA, which I will explain what that means because I cannot process acronyms, which is Horses Helping People with Depression and Anxiety, which is a great idea. How did it come about?
In 2012, well, I broke my arm in 2010 on a riding school horse in half, plate and pins. Just the ground was really hard. The ground wasn't great. In an inside arena, went to learn why horses do what they do. That became my discovery about learning about horsemanship. And my mum saw how happy horses made me. So in 2012, she bought my horse Harvey, who is the co-founder of HHPDA.
I love that. I love
That's so
that Harvey is the co-founder.
100%.
Yeah.
Without him, it wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
And so during that process, what I thought then was like depression. I just, because I literally had fallen in love with this horse, and the owner just became a bit greedy, and she wouldn't sell that horse to me and made lots of excuses up. And so I said, right, I'm going to give myself 2.5 weeks. If I don't find a horse by then I'll take my time. But I'm going to find a horse. So we all know the end of that story, don't we?
We do. The end of that story is Harvey.
Oh.
And I just knew as soon as I sat on him that he was the right horse. It's kind of like funny because he's kind of mirrored me in how he was. He was very shut down, very overweight, and everyone just thought he was just like he's just a chilled out horse. So just learning about having my own horse and going through my own process as well. I went through I wasn't at the best yard. The women there, they were just saw a person who's having their own first horse, didn't have much confidence, even though I'd done quite a lot of horsemanship beforehand and I'd done training courses, and I just didn't have the confidence. I had the skills there. And so Harvey really helped me. And during that time, I used to go to these support groups. During that time, support groups were really helpful for me because I hadn't kind of found my own voice or kind of found my own way to cope with things. So being around other people was really helpful. Some of the people I'm still really good friends with now. And so Harvey really helped me. The peer support group really helped me. And so I was like, oh, why don't I start a peer support group with a horse? And that's basically how HHPDA began, because it was through Depression Alliance, which actually merged with miND charity now. And they used to run lots of support groups around the UK. And so I was like, I want to do something different. It's not surprising now, but I want to do something different. And the whole process of actually going through that and actually setting it up, trying to get him to go to places, trying to get people involved in the actual process, because it was very different. It still is very different in the way in which we run it. It certainly is. And I went into a massive crash because I went at a million miles an hour, and then the disappointment, because they were like, the disappointment of it just not working out. I went into what I thought was a really bad depression episode, but now I know was a massive sensory overload, that I'd just taken on too much and I just overloaded myself.
Big old burnout.
Yeah.
Big old burnout.
Yeah. It was, and now thinking back, the sensory side of things, I really understand that now. And reflecting out loud is, I'm reflecting as we're talking. And I remember I hadn't left the house in 5 days. This is back in 2014. And I remember my mum goes, do you know what, Zaid? This is really stressing you out. Is it worth it? And I go, I can't explain it, Mum. I just know I need to do this. And I remember she's like, I hadn't even left the house. So, anybody, even professionals like Zaid, one step at a time. And I'm just like, no, because I just know I need to do this. It's just something in my heart. I know I need to do it. So once I kind of regulated myself, and now looking back, my nervous system was all a bit more regulated. And my mum was paramount in, she was like, if you don't get out of bed, I'm going to sell your horse. And I'm just like, I'm getting out of bed. I'm just like, no, don't sell my horse. So just getting me to go out, she was the best. And like I spoke about in the last episode, that, when she wasn't there as my support system, she's a husband who's basically very ill. It just, not having her there was so catastrophic. And so then I thought, well, I'm putting all this effort in, working for another charity. Moving that mic, sorry. I might as well just set something up myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what you want to do with it.
Well, that was the genius idea that I had, and I was just like, right, just gone through a depression episode, and then because when I was at that point of that sensory overload, what I thought was depression, I was looking at equine therapy. Obviously I had my horse, but professional psychotherapy with horses. Everybody said they did everything. They're like, we support drugs, alcohol, self-esteem, depression, anxiety. And I'm just like, how do you do it all? And I'm just like, but there's nothing that supports only depression and anxiety. There isn't still in the county, and there isn't in the UK. And so I wanted to create something that wasn't there for me. And so it kind of was a process. I spent a long time deciding who was going to be our board members. So did the peer support group, still run it now. It's more of a kind of supplementary thing for the psychotherapy. So when people finish the psychotherapy, they have the choice to join the peer support group, knowing it's not actual therapy. So for me, it's always about creating something that wasn't there for somebody else, because I know, and I think It's something I spoke about last week at the leadership, not the leadership, the partnership board at Shire Hall. It's like people want people with lived experience, but personally and professionally, I just feel there's judgment. Again, going back to what I was talking about in the first episode, there's unconscious bias. We all have it, no matter if we aren't directly related to something. We do have that. But the people with the lived experience in whatever framework they're doing, or any kind of leadership, or any program like you guys are running, there is a kind of like, oh, it might be a bit too much for them, or it'll be a bit too much. But you're like thinking to yourself, we know what works and what doesn't work. Come to us.
Yeah.
You guys have the expertise. You've got the training. There is no doubt you are. I hate the word expert by experience. I don't hate it, but I dislike it strongly in that I'm somebody with lived experience who knows what works and what doesn't work. And most importantly, I know when things get too much that I will take a step back. I know that I need to get help. And I think it's so powerful. Lived experience is used very... I think, I don't know what the word is, but people just throw it around quite a lot. But I think if you really sit down with a person who's got lived experience and actually listen to how they've overcome stuff, there's so much power in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that really needs to be looked at. And that's basically how HHPDA came about. And what I want to do with the neurodiversity, there is no clinical support out there.
That really speaks to a strength there of yours. That you recognize you can step back. You know that you go, actually this, and then when it's a time to step back, how to do that, and you will do it. And that is such a brilliant thing. And then recognizing that that's missing, or like things to help other people maybe find that in different ways aren't there. It also, it sounds like your horse was really absolutely instrumental. What do you think it is about horses that add to the kind of therapeutic process?
For me, because horses are like prey animals, so in the wild, it's all about survival. So it's fight, flight, or freeze. So they need to survive and reproduce so that they can have bigger herds. And so horses are there's very social animals. There's a hierarchy. There's horses that are more stronger. There's horses that are the leaders. There's horses that have different jobs in that herd. But most importantly, therapeutically, they're very self-aware. They have to be aware of what's going on in their surroundings. Because if they're not, then their predator is going to come and eat them. So obviously they've got the power in numbers. But at the same time, it's so important for horses to be aware of things. And the non-verbal is massive. They can't make too much sound. Horse will only whinny or neigh when they are distressed. And then that will set off another horse knowing that they're distressed. And depending on the sensitivity levels, every horse has a different personality, that social side of things. And therapeutically, that's what makes them so amazing. Like my horse now and my horse 12 years ago is so different. And that's because I'm different. And it's something I spoke about last week as well. When I used to go into the field, when I was really, really anxious, again, I don't think it was anxiety. I think I was massively deregulated. I think I was in a massive sensory overload, that everything was just too much. I think I was masking at that point, but I think all the sounds and everything, just the whole, I'm on a quite small yard, but just having lots of people around was just too much. My horse doesn't tend to move unless there's food around. He's like a big lab. He is. If you meet him, you will know.
A giant Labrador.
He's a giant Labrador, and but it's just like I would go into the stable, and like when I was really, really anxious, he would just like 1 minute I'd open the door, next minute he'd be out of there, and I'd be like, okay, well, that's new. That's not happened before. Or when we'd run the peer support group, he's got very good ground manners in that he will stand and just not move because I've trained him, and he was very good to begin with, to be fair, because of his personality. He's just that quite a laid back horse. But I've had, at the peer support group, I've had a very, very anxious person come. He will not stand still. He'll barge past me. Like a horse barging past is really bad manners. Like a dog, like going all over you and just not sitting still. And being a big animal, they've got to be safe.
So he sort of reflects the emotion
Mirrors,
that's
exactly.
happening in the other person.
Exactly, which is not that different to some neurodiverse people.
And I guess if you were a person in that situation where that animal is mirroring, you will want to calm that animal.
Yeah.
Which is a way of calming yourself.
Yes,
so it's like it's self-regulating, but
exactly.
it's like self-care, but for somebody else.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
Exactly.
That's something a lot of us do, actually, isn't it?
Exactly. Exactly. That's exactly what it is. Like, we had a situation of a group of people for our group equine assisted psychotherapy, where there was actually one neurodiverse person in that group. It was quite a small group. I think there was 3-4 people. And I remember, so I'm the equine specialist. I run it with a psychotherapist. And I remember we were walking towards the field, and then we were working with 6 horses on that occasion, like 2 big horses, 2 small ones, and 2 medium-sized ones. I think that's the easiest way to explain it if you don't know about horses. Small, medium, and large, 2 of each. And my psychotherapist, she was walking with the clients, and I was walking ahead because I always do that just for a safety perspective. The horses, literally, we're talking about a massive field, like a football size field, and there was a gate in between that field. The horses literally galloped from one field to the next. And you're talking about self-regulation. So, and in my head, I'm just like, a lot of colourful language was going through my head. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, well, that's never happened before. So I was just like, right. I was like, okay, we'll just look at the horses. Let's just look at the horses. As I tried to work out what we're going to do. So my psychotherapist said I was very calm. So great, brilliant masking there. And I remember we just literally head on, where we had me, the psychotherapist, the clients, and the horses just literally lining up from afar and just looking at each other. And so I was just waiting for that moment where the horses put their head down and showed they were relaxed, but they regulated themselves. So for me personally, horses are amazing at regulating themselves. You just have to give them the right environment.
Yeah.
And how's that no different to a neurodiverse person?
Amazing.
And as soon as they put their head down, then we just have a conversation on what the horse is doing, how they put it back to the horses, always put it back to the horses, what's going on with them.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you start talking internal, you start bringing up emotions, and that is going to be felt by the horses, because the horses do mirror you. So when you put it back to the horses and see what's going on with them, you're like, oh, well, that horse is doing that. So you're not kind of going too internal. And it's like, oh, that horse is doing that, or that reminds me of that person, or that reminds me of that situation. The metaphors are amazing, but for some neurodiverse people, that horse is just a horse, or that horse is just eating. That's fine too. It's everybody's experience is different. But as soon as that horse regulates itself, put its head down, I already knew that horse was relaxed. Then we'd invite, do you want to go out? So horses are amazing at self-regulation, and that's what they make it beautiful for neurodiverse people. Because looking back at the work that we've done, reflecting back on it, some people did classify themselves as neurodiverse, whether it was a specific diagnosis of what used to be called Asperger's, autistic, or ADHD, or dyspraxia. Yeah, dyspraxia, and whichever label they wanted to give themselves. But there's a lot of clients looking back that now, with my own lens, having got more educated about it through my own diagnosis, I realized that we probably had a lot more neurodiverse clients, which were probably being misdiagnosed as anxiety. And there's situations I can think of now, but they're so amazing. There is no word that I can explain how amazing Harvey is. Harvey was ill over the last 6 weeks. And I said to him, my dad was very ill about beginning of the year. We nearly lost him. And I said to him, but my dad fought through. He's a fighter. He's a fighter. He's my hero. And I begged him to stay, and he stayed because of me and my mum. There's no doubt about it. And I realise I'm the favourite. I know I probably shouldn't say that to my other sisters. I do say that. I say that. I shouldn't say it, but I do. I realise it. I say this to my mum. I go, I know Rima, my older sister, is your favourite. I totally get that I'm yours. I say it to my dad. He can't talk anymore, my father. But it's like, I said to Harvey, I looked at him and I said, look, Dad fought. We need to, I go, you need to fight, because his abscess was really bad. It just came out of nowhere. We thought it might be something very terminal. And the vet shouldn't have said that to me, because he probably regretted it, because I went down the rabbit hole of trying to research it. I said, you can't give up. You can't give up. I go, you've looked after me for the last 12 years. I was literally looking him head on, because I find it really hard making eye contact sometimes. I have to really concentrate to do that. But I looked him in the eyes and I said, you can't give up. You have to. Dad fought. You're going to fight. I go, you've looked after me for the last 12 years. I am going to look after you now. It's my job to look after you. I go, we've got too many things to do with HHPDA. You can't go yet. And he started grooming me here. And I was just like, I don't care whether you like animals, you don't like animals, you get horses, you don't get that connection that you have, that spiritual connection, whatever your belief system is or whatever it is, there is nothing like that. He very rarely, the only other time he's groomed me like that on my head is when he had a bit of hay stuck in his eye and I got it out, and it was just like, thank you.
You find it with lots of animals, and a lot of neurodivergent people often find a great affinity with animals.
Yeah.
And I think there is that thing of a lot of ND people struggle with eye contact, and but are able to do that with their dog or their cat. And
You've got an instinctive animal connection with, we don't have to have all these weird human social norms and stuff. You can just be animal. One of the things I used to love doing with family dogs growing up was getting down on the floor with them and being a dog, just nuzzling with them and actually just going into working in their language and their world for a while. And it was so good for me.
I think HHPDA sounds fantastic, and the work that you're doing is great. And I love that you're expanding it to go beyond depression, anxiety, and into neurodivergence. You can find HHPDA online.
Yes.
We'll put up some links for you so that you can go and have a look. And I recommend that you do, because it's not only fascinating, but I think it could really do you some good. Thank you so much for joining us again, Zabe. And
Pleasure.
we'll see you all next week.
Okay, folks, that's it for this episode. Find us on Instagram at life.inthemind. Our other socials are linked in the bio. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Bye!